And we're live. Just give it a few minutes here. We had to create another stream. Just kind of on par for the day. The stream that we created for the show won't go live for some reason. The YouTube has totally screwed up the stuff. So I'm trying to punt. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'll give it a few minutes. Looks like we got a couple people coming in. Hopefully they'll notice that this stream is live and not the other one. So those of you who are here, welcome. I'll just apologize right off the bat. This is, I planned this to be, longer show. Hey, Jack, how are you? This was going to, have a couple of guests, not guests, but probably co-hosts, and just be a little bit longer than it's going to be, and I might just redo it. What's going on is the fifth of 5 dogs, 4 of which we've lost to cancer, is pretty much dying at this moment, and we're trying to get the vet to come in on the weekend to have him put down. We were there 2 days ago, and he's gone from being relatively okay with a terminal diagnosis to just he's just having a hard time breathing real fast, and so he's metabolically has something wrong. So yeah, it's it's been quite the weekend. So I'll just try to get to the point, and I might have to just end this at any minute. My wife's in the other room with the dog, and he's just really not doing well. He may die before we can get the vet to put him down. So it's really a rotten day. It's been kind of a rotten weekend. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, and welcome everybody as you're coming in. Hearing Epstein was dead was just, it was a total shock to me, and I'm sure many other people. And right off the bat, we've been following this case for years. Hey everybody, welcome. Yeah, we are. We're gonna, and Vicky, tell you the truth, the only reason I'm sitting here is because I've been sitting with him on. I needed a break from sitting with him. My wife's taken over because it's just been really awful. But thank you, and it won't be so long. But I just want to kind of get some of this information out, and just a couple of things that are really bothering me, because I see people devolving into this theory land. First of all, Epstein was small potatoes, okay, in the scheme of what's going on with what he was doing. He was a pimp, okay, and whether he lived or died, he was not the story. And since we've been doing this show, and the point of all this is the survivors of child sexual abuse. It's not the perpetrators. It's not the legal system. It's not any of those things. So if Epstein would have went to trial, the thing that hopefully will happen through this, and still can happen, is that the co-conspirators will be indicted, and the system of corruption that allowed Epstein to do what he did and operate in plain sight. And that's part of what this show is about, because when I started investigating this ambulance, people were like, oh, they're doing organ transplants and all this. And admittedly, it's strange, but we'll get to that. I'm trying not to get too digress. There's a lot of, and Vicky, there are a lot of questions, but we don't need, the details are meaningless at this point. What's important is he's no longer a defendant. Whatever happened, and there's issues, and if the prison system was complicit in what happened to him, and I wouldn't be surprised, that should be looked into. But as a whole, we need to stay focused on the survivors, The witnesses didn't die. That's what the Justice Department built their case on with Epstein. And we pretty much know from our own research that all Bill Clinton, Dershowitz, all these other people that have been accused by Virginia Roberts have done this, so that's where, and I think that's where the investigation was going anyway. So my point being, rather than to waste all this effort, how did he die? Who's responsible? He's gone. He's no longer a defendant. What's important are the survivors that are coming forward, and the U.S. attorney put out a statement to that effect. They're still coming forward. Getting justice for them is the point. And that's what we need to be focused on is, supporting any victims that are already in the public eye, Virginia Roberts and many others, and read the information that's coming out. I'm 400 pages through some of that the depositions, and people need to see that. People need to hear about it. Tweet about that. Tweet about who's left. Tweet about how it shows Bill Clinton was on that plane. How it shows whatever relationship Alan Durst, because it's all in there. And it's tedious. And but that's what I mean. We need to stay focused. It was just like it reminded me of 9/11. Because when that happened, we knew as firefighters those were demolitions. I knew that day. But what happened was, and this is how the power structure works, it splinters people into little groups, and these people think this way, and this way, and then it was laser beams, it was nuclear devices, which didn't matter. The point was they were demolitions. That, and Building 7 just proved that. Plane didn't hit it, fell into its own footprint. And then all this wasted effort and people splintering into these, how did it happen? Who did it? If we'd all gotten together and say these were demolitions and not wasted time on everything else that the time has been wasted on, we might have gotten that commission that was just formed 10 years ago. So same thing with Epstein. This is huge. It's still huge. The case isn't over. The U.S. attorney released a statement to that effect. It's the conspiracy. That's why they charged him with conspiracy, so they could add the co-conspirators into the process, and that's still active, whether Epstein is here or not. So don't get bogged down in the details. Keep your eye, it's on the target. This is all just a shell game. Look over here. Well, some guy might have done this. His ears don't look, and there's 800. There's probably more than 800 pages of documents out there that you can read and you can post about that were made under oath statements. That Alan Dershowitz raped Virginia Roberts, that Bill Clinton raped her. We had somebody come up on our. I'm not sure, Vicky. I'm not sure. But yeah, they have the authority to do anything. I don't know why they haven't seized the island yet, but that may be in the offing. I don't know. But we have this information in our hands now. So highlight it. Talk to people about it. We've always said this from day one on the show. Talk to your neighbors, talk. That's how stuff gets changed. Tweeting is really not going to change anything. This little, and we do the show just for information, but that's not really going to change anything. But together, if we're continuing to build, it's basically citizen news, and that's what I'll get into this because I'm starting to ramble a little bit. But you get it, and I just don't want you guys to do that. Don't waste your time on it. It doesn't matter who killed Epstein. It doesn't matter how it was. That's a side issue. And if the government or the Bureau of Prisons facilitated that somebody will take care of that. What's important is direct your energy and your tweets and everything else to the Department of Justice. There are more witnesses. Build more indictments, indict more people, because that's what's going to change. Even if Epstein would have gotten to trial and he got convicted and he got 45 years or 100 years or whatever, If that's all they did, it would have meant very little, other than he wasn't out there to do it. And when you call a spade, yeah, there's a trust involved. But the government is pretty powerful. They can do a lot of things. But when it comes down to it, he was a pimp. That's all this guy was. He was a made pimp, a fall guy for the rich and powerful. And he fulfilled his function, and then he got thrown to the wolves, and I think he's dead. I think how he did it, the fact that he was allowed to do it is the problem. Okay. He should have been under 24-hour, video surveillance, checking, with a guard sitting with him, and so that's a problem. Okay. But be that as it may, he doesn't matter, and he didn't matter. And if he would have made it to trial and got convicted, that's not the story. The story is the corruption and the powerful people that were raping these kids right alongside him. So put your effort into that. Blast that out there. Read those depositions. Those are under oath testimony. And as much as Alan Dershowitz wants to squirm, the truth is the truth, whether he kept his underwear on or not. It's just ridiculous. So I want to get on to this, and this is another thing I want to tell you. You can do what I just did. It took me about a month, but when I saw this ambulance, I wanted to get to the bottom of it. It struck me as wrong, weird. How could that? Why is it there? How is it there? And it was the same thing. And rather than getting bogged down in what it was used for, I went, well, how did it get there? And so I made contact with it turned out to be a wonderful woman that's in the Department of Health in the Virgin Islands, and just told her the story. I had to verify who I was and why I was asking, and I think she probably could have got into trouble for talking to me, but we talked on the phone. You can call the Virgin Islands by phone on your cell phone, by the way, free of charge. And she turned out to be the person that licenses all the ambulances in the Virgin Islands, and she nearly fell over. I sent her the pictures. If you haven't been to Rusty Shackelford's YouTube channel, get over there, share that stuff, because that's how we found out about the ambulance, and it just struck me as wrong. And I wasn't sure what the laws in the Virgin Islands were. I'm going to bring up some of these emails so I can read them to you. This Facebook is screwed up. They took out, and they're owned by Google, but they got rid of Google Hangouts. So it's made it, I can't screen share. So I'm at bare bones. The plan is, when things calm down and get a little less hectic, to get new software, and then we'll be able to do all the things and have guests via Skype and all the other things we've wanted to do over the years. But it was really nice to make contact with somebody over there. And when I started to, and I'm not going to give her a name because there's no need to, and I think she may be in hot water already just for talking to me, but and that's why you send emails to these people, because there's a paper trail, and they have to respond to you in some way. But yeah, anybody can do this. So anyway, she's I'll just tell you the story, and then I'll read some of these emails. But let's see, sent. Okay. So anyway, we're having this initial conversation. When I told her about the ambulance, I could hear her over the phone. She was flabbergasted. She was familiar with the case, and there's no way. They've got 5 ambulances in the Virgin Islands, period. And she knew right off the bat that this was not supposed to be there. So why is that important? It's important because there is a level of corruption that allowed that ambulance to get into the Virgin Islands. And I didn't know any of this. And what she told me was, to even get a vehicle like that into the Virgin Islands, there's a legal process that you have to follow. So she went to research and make sure that there was no nonprofit that owned the vehicle, that it wasn't registered in some other way. But the bottom line is none of that was done. Okay, and we don't know if anybody else within that bureaucracy knew about it. Epstein wasn't big on following the law, So it's quite possible that he just had the thing shipped via those container ships. If you look on Rusty's channel, you can see their little, it's a harbor that they have there. You know, it's a deep water harbor in the islands. You can pull a barge up there and they're unloading shipping containers. And so they could have had it shipped in via container. And but the weird part is too, there's a license plate on it. And here's where we run into where possible corruption. And because to get a license for a vehicle like that, you have to have all the other things in order. So let me go through the laws that are the same in the state of Florida or probably any other state in the union, what you have to do to have one of those vehicles. Okay. You need something called a certificate of need. And that is done through the state. You establish that you need this. And that it's a bureaucratic process and it's quite involved. You know, ambulance companies follow it. Fire departments have to, I knew that, have to follow it. You need a medical director, which they didn't have. They didn't have a certificate of need. It needs to be, if you're doing paramedic skills, it needs to be advanced life support certified. Or if you're just doing basic life support, EMT level stuff, needs to be EMT certified through the Virgin Islands or the state that it's in. Neither of those were present. Okay. No medical director. So if that ambulance was operating as an ambulance, it was doing so illegally. And the other, so you've got, and where we can see corruption, you know, right off the bat is the fact that it has a license plate on it. Okay. And I emailed the Bureau of Motor Vehicles over there, and they won't respond to me. And I'm going to file a FOIA request with them for the information on who owns that vehicle and how it was registered, because that shouldn't have taken place. You can't put a tag on an ambulance without all those other things that I just mentioned being in place, and they weren't. So this woman was flabbergasted. She went and confirmed this through the state, and so obviously that and the other big thing that was, she was very shocked. I guess it's customs or however it works out there. To bring a vehicle like that, it has to come through customs. That never happened. Okay, so an ambulance was smuggled into that island, and it flaunting every law if it was operating properly, you know, which who knows, which I doubt, you know, which is possible. You know, it could have been there in case anybody had a medical emergency and they had to be flown out so they could, you know, that's all possible. So, and it really doesn't matter. Like the story here is the corruption that was existing out there to let this happen. Okay, that's the story, and that's the story as we go forward with the Epstein matter. And so let me just read one of these emails. Okay, and it's the ones that she sent to me, because as we started you know, conversing, and as things got more serious, the emails got shorter and shorter. And I understand that, because if they're doing an investigation, she can't really be talking to the public about it. You know, it's just like a law enforcement agency. So, okay, so the first one was she got all the information. She wasn't able to respond because she was testifying at the Senate. You know, they're in the corridors of power. And her preliminary investigation showed the ambulance is not licensed under our licensing and consumer affairs or hold a certificate of need from the Department of Health. Tomorrow, we'll see if it's registered under a nonprofit organization from our Lieutenant Governor's office. So she continued with her investigation. It got up through the Lieutenant Governor, and there's chain of command in all these bureaucracies. So she was following that. She has to follow that, and she still might be under some heat. As it turned out, let's see. All right. So as we went on, and you know, we talked about, I gave her everything that I could, you know, on the vehicle, the pictures, and what I knew from the BMV, and so she was compiling that information. And as it the way it was left, and the last thing I asked her was for an update, and this was her update. The information from you has been forwarded to my administration, which is the chain of command, and legal counsel. So that sounds like an official investigation to me. And I haven't done that yet, but I am going to be emailing her just to confirm that there's an official investigation, because that's important. How did that get in there? How did that happen? And the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, how did it get licensed? How did it get in the country? So that was good. And and anybody here can do that. Pick up the phone, think about questions that you want to ask. What was really interesting to me, and through this process, because I thought, this was just so out of place and so unusual, and touched on the corruption that must exist in the Virgin Islands. He operated a child trafficking network in plain view. Corruption is the issue. So I got in touch with Julie Brown, and you know who she is. She's the reporter for the Miami Herald, did that amazing series of articles, Perversion of Justice. And I think she kicked the Justice Department so hard they had to charge him, whether they were ready to or not. So I got in, I gave all this information to Julie Brown because I thought it was pertinent, and this is the email that Julie sent back to me. We saw the ambulance and also spoke with people who know about it. Our understanding is because the island is isolated, they wanted to have an ambulance stocked with medical supplies. In an event, someone got ill. If there is some other reason, let me know. There are a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding this case, so I'm suspect about most stories that people tell me. So I thought that was a little odd to be talking about conspiracy stories right off the bat. And while, I basically agree with her, that's not what I was talking about. So this is the email I sent back to her. Let me see if I can find that. Okay. Okay, so this is my reply to Julie Brown. I said, well, here's the thing. My source in EMS nearly fainted upon hearing about it, as in Florida, there are laws governing the operation of an ambulance, and none of these are in compliance. It sounds like the EMS department is opening their own investigation. You just can't decide to operate an ambulance just in case somebody gets hurt or sick. Here are most of the high points of legal use. None of these are in compliance. And she asked me to tell her if it's, there's some other purpose, but I don't know what the purpose is, and it's really not important. But I went through certificate of need, advanced life support, basic life support certification, a medical director. Oh, another thing, Epstein's vehicles were required to be listed with the sex offender registry. The FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, has a website. Every vehicle Epstein owned was on that website, required by law. Ambulance wasn't on there, so I let Julie know about that. That was a bit odd. The Department of Motor Vehicles issued a tag with all these deficiencies, also which is highly irregular. Any personnel that would render aid using the vehicle or any supplies have to be certified and registered with Virgin Islands EMS. And there's a legal process even to get such a vehicle into the territory. This appears not to have been followed. So I thought, well, let me continue. All that being said, with the money he has and the large expense of even getting it there, why not comply with the law? These things being true, if he didn't just drop it from a helicopter, leads to individuals in the local government facilitating the process of it getting there and being operated in an illegal manner. Corruption, quote, collusion. What else did they help him with? That's a good question. If he could do this, and did do it, what else were they helping him out with? Okay, it's not like Epstein was big on following the law, but this isn't adding up for me. Just the reaction of the official was quite intense. She is checking if there's a nonprofit association associated with it and reporting this to USVI Lieutenant Governor. They seem to be taking this very seriously as far as any nefarious purpose it was used for. If that's the case, witnesses will come forward undoubtedly. Other than being used as a cover to transport multiple victims from a helipad, I can't think of what it would be used for. Finally, seeing business as usual going on there is quite disturbing. With the executive order, confiscation, and possible evidence, has the FBI searched or planning to seize the property? You think Julie might know that. Maybe it's just extremely strange to me, having worked legally in EMS. I can keep you updated as to what the EMS official finds. And if they're doing an official investigation, I don't think the story is, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm trying to share with you guys. I don't think the story is what it was used for, hopefully. The story is how it got there and its illegal operation, the corruption. Okay, so never got a reply. I sent her a follow-up email telling her about that last email, that the information had been forwarded to the EMS administration and their legal counsel, which to me sounds like an official investigation. So no reply from Julie Brown. I found that pretty odd. And so I don't know. You can make of that what you will, but I thought it was, you know, and maybe she hasn't made the link that Epstein is not the story. The survivors are the story, and the corruption that allowed him to operate and made him is the story. So maybe I'll hear from her sometime in the future. I don't know. But anyway, that's basically everything. Let me see if I can tell you any more that I need to. Of course, we'll bring any updates, and if I can get them to confirm an official investigation, you know. The other strange thing, there's a reporter that I contacted that works for Virgin Islands Daily News, I think it is, and she did a wonderful story on the corruption in the emergency medical services in 2016. So naturally, I thought, let me contact her. This will interest her. I sent her 5 emails detailing everything. The stuff from the administration, I've yet to get a reply. So I found that a little odd. And maybe a paper in the USVI really doesn't want to take on the level of corruption that allowed this ambulance to get there and that allowed him to operate. So I don't know. That was very odd to me. So I think that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, you know, put them in the comments, and I'll try to review and answer them later. Hopefully I'll be getting an update on the official investigation, and the Epstein case is nowhere near over. The U.S. attorney, that's their statement. The victims are continuing to come forward. I would, you know, urge any victims to come. We had somebody, and we're looking into it now, on our comment to Howie's video confronting Clinton about the Lolita Express, that said she was raped by Bill Clinton in 1999. That was the comment. I don't know if that's the case. We reached out to her. Our advice to her strongly was to contact, you know, that FBI hotline, because that's not just the Epstein hotline. That's anybody who Epstein facilitated their rape by either Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, anybody else, Joe Blow. That's the hotline. That's the information that you should be getting out. You know, you want to tweet, you want to get this information out, get that information out. That the case is still alive. Highlight the sworn testimony and all those documents that are being released, and put whatever pressure you can on the Justice Department to indict co-conspirators. That's it. That's where we go from here. It's not, don't be diverted with the size of Epstein's ear, you know, how he looked, you know, and I'll just tell you right off the bat, I worked in EMS from 1987 to 2011. And that looked like a dead, really dead guy that they were working in full cardiac arrest, that may have been choked. You know, he had really, there's a couple of conditions, hanging's one of them, traumatic asphyxia, where from here up goes blue. He had all of that. It looked like they were doing proper CPR, you know, and that looked like a dead Jeff Epstein. So don't waste your time. And regardless, it's just not important. If he's dead, he's dead. If he's gone, he's gone. What's important is that he is no longer a defendant. So where do we and the survivors go from here? We demand justice for those survivors. We demand indictments for the co-conspirators and everybody involved. And our battle is with the system, the people, and the corruption that allowed that to operate for decades. So thank you, guys. I got it all out. Just say a couple prayers for our little guy, and we'll see you next time. We're gonna, you know, I'll tell you the truth. I don't think we're going to be back on here for a little while because we've got the streaming issues, and we'll keep in touch. I try to keep. I'm not going to be on Twitter today. I'll tell you that. And we're either going to put Sprout down tonight or tomorrow. So we're going to be on shutdown for the next little while. So any prayers are appreciated. We've already thank you everybody in there. I can see you. And I'm not even going to type in thank you because I can just thank everybody that's here and all the people that have been with us from day one and that are on Twitter and Facebook and everything else, because we couldn't do this without you. You guys listen, you spread this information, and this show has always been about survivors giving, and unfortunately lately we haven't had any survivors coming forward wanting to tell their stories. We were out of commission for a while. So that's okay, but we're still going, and do any of you can do this investigation, and it's the same, that's what the reporters do. They pick up the phone, they send out emails, and we are the news media. There are some good alternative news media sources, but basically we're it. We know we can't rely on any of the mainstream media. So get out there and do your own investigation, pick something that looks funny, but keep the target right in front of you. And the target is the corruption that existed to allow Epstein to operate, and every single person that raped those kids along with him. So that means every victim needs to be heard. The ones that have already come forward, they need support. That's what we're doing. Who gives a shit about what Epstein's ears looked like, or if he was hung, shot, or evaporated? I don't care, and it doesn't matter. And had he been alive and gone to trial, that wasn't the issue. The issues are the survivors getting justice, and every last one of those rapists going to jail. So I trust you guys. I have confidence in you. See through the diversions, and this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing, can end in a positive way, and it should. That the explosiveness of that happening or being allowed to happen. If we take that and channel it into single-minded justice for the victims and prosecution for the guilty, that's going to get done. So Joe Knapp, yeah, we have a good country. We have a great country, great people, and you won't hear me talk about politics. I don't care about politics. I support the man that's in the White House currently. I voted for him, but politics aren't the issue. That's like, that's like, was there a body double, put into the hospital? That makes about as much sense. This is not about any of that. It's not about politics. It's about our children. It's about the survivors of child sexual abuse. And it's about us as a nation demanding justice for the ones who have been abused, and for the ones that will be abused. Okay? So I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Stay in touch.